Welcome to the Yin Project. I'm your host, Emily Beaven. Hi, Astra. Thanks so much for coming on today. I appreciate it.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here, Emily.
So we're going to dive right into it. I don't do a big intro. I like to get to the meat and all the juicy stuff. You are a life coach. You are a spiritual coach. And one of the things that I'm really excited to talk to you about today is creativity and mental health. Tell me more about that. And I know that you have a personal journey and a personal story that kind of brought you to that passion. So please, feel free to talk about that as well.
Thank you. Yes, happy to. So I'm also a singer-songwriter. So music and creativity has been
Mom.
Yes, wear many hats.
Yes.
And creativity has been something that has both been a real tool for me and also in the past very elusive for me. So I've naturally been drawn to creative things like crafting, art projects, collaging, music, singing, performing arts.
When did that start for you? Like what age?
So the fourth grade talent show was the first time I sang on stage. And I don't remember leading up to that other than my family was very musical. We listened to the Beatles and the Beach Boys, lots of oldies, doing lip syncing in the living room with my siblings. And the first song that I actually sang in the fourth grade talent show was from the musical Les Mis. And musicals were big in my family.
That was a big stretch. I mean, that's a hard musical.
And if you know the musical, I auditioned with Own, which is, I believe, a big song. And they told me it was too adults, so they had me sing Castle on the Cloud. Nice. Which is a child in the show. So that was my first time performing on stage. And then I looked forward to every talent show after that. And I started doing musical theater starting at the age of 10 through 17. So it had always been something that was very natural for me, something I was really drawn to. But it was elusive because as I started playing guitar when I was 16, I had written songs from the time I was really at a very young age, just writing melodies and lyrics from poetry. It was not something that I was really I felt that in control. It was something that happened spontaneously. I would feel sad about something and the song would come through. And so I ended up writing a lot of what I call sad love songs for a very long time. And it's really just been in the last 5 or 6 years that I have been really looking at creativity as a tool for personal growth and development in combination with what I've learned as a coach.
So tell me a little bit more about that and tell me how you are bringing that into your practice today, because we talked a little bit about it offline, and with technology, there feels like a lack of creativity, especially as an adult. Certainly if you have children, it feels like, okay, you have more opportunity to maybe do crafting and, get inspired on Pinterest and do special things. But I don't think creativity is something that we really talk about as adults, and certainly not as a modality for self-growth. So tell me a little bit more about how you bring it in with your clients.
Absolutely. So I do see creativity as a necessity for our mental health. The world is so hurting right now emotionally. And I see a real connection between the separation of creativity and our mental health. So let me share with you a little bit about my backstory and how creativity has really transformed my mental health and given me that viewpoint today. When I was 20, my husband passed away of a drug overdose. And it was a real spiritual and personal awakening for me. And what ended up happening, as I mentioned, I've been playing guitar since I was 16. I've been songwriting off and on, but I had really not putting much attention or focus into it. And once my husband passed away, I found myself really as sitting with my grief and sitting alone in my room and just picked up my guitar and poured my grief, my feelings, my emotions, everything I would have said to him, if I saw him again, everything I was feeling around his family and everything that was going into that, I poured into these songs. And in retrospect, I can see how that was such a catalyst for healing for me, because it was an opportunity for me to really sit in the emotions, let them work through me. I wasn't running away from them. I wasn't trying to feel anything. I remember just writing these songs and really sobbing as I sang them. And I got to a point where I could keep playing the songs, and it transformed this emotion into something else, into a growth catalyst, as I call it. So it's like really one of the key things that I've learned from my own journey and supporting others is that really the lessons that we gain from the circumstances we experience, those are the gifts in the challenges that we have. And we have a real choice of how we're going to respond to the circumstances that happen to us. And so we can choose to use a creative act, whatever that is for you. For me, it's been songwriting, like I said, maybe crafting, or maybe you like doing painting, even just cooking a meal. It doesn't have to look like typical artists do with like writing, music, and visual art. Whatever you want to pour your creative self into, whatever that creative outlet is, it's the intention that's important. And having an opportunity to take whatever it is that you're feeling and pour it into that creative act and allow it to transform in whatever way it manifests.
I love that. That's really, really beautiful. Give me an example of how your clients are doing that today, and what kind of the transformation success story that you've seen in one of your clients.
So I often attract clients that are already considering themselves creative. So they may already have a creative outlet that they are drawn to. So I've worked with tattoo artists. I've worked with authors. I've worked with creative entrepreneurs who have a business. Again, might not necessarily seem creative when I'm talking about it's like a project manager. But people, like, when they're bringing themselves and their unique gifts into what they're doing, it is creative. You are using those parts of your brain that are creative, that become your passion, right?
100%. And I think that's an area that we don't necessarily give enough, I don't want to say credit, but for me, selling real estate, there is a huge level of creativity involved when you are trying to come up with a solution, like creative thinking, creative financing. Maybe you can't afford this house, but if we were able to find you a duplex, you could use the rent for the one, you know what I mean? Like the leveraging and that creative, it's not this like linear, okay, find a house, write the offer, get the house. There's a lot of creativity that goes into that. And certainly in all aspects of business, when you're putting deals together and building teams and doing all of the things in tech. And I don't think we talk about that or nurture that process enough. I think that it might get labeled as more like critical thinking skills, like when you're an adult, because it just feels like that word creativity is more geared towards children or artists, and it's not like applied to, like, I don't think of myself as a creative person, but when I have this conversation with you, I see all the creative things that I do in my business and my peers and colleagues do as well. So I think there's like a language barrier around that. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And we are all creative. If that hasn't been made clear, we are all creative naturally. It's our birthright as humans. If you look around, we are a product of life, and life is creative. Life is
we are creating on a daily basis. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think what you're talking about, Emily, is really this issue that we're discussing of where creativity has really been separated from who we are. And when you're talking about things like our languaging and how you associate with it, it's not something you identify. I think that is purely a product of our conditioning from our culture of really separating creativity from our daily lives.
Where do you think that, when did that happen? When did that start? I don't know. I don't know. I went to a school for the arts from grade 4 through 8. So highly creative, same thing as you, musical theater. I was on point for years, very, very, very creative. And then I don't know, somewhere along the lines, things got more serious. Like it became like adulting, and that that creativity kind of went away. So I don't know if that was just my own personal experience. It sounds like you're seeing it too. I don't know if in the greater collective you have any feedback on that, but it does feel like it's gone away.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like with the modern era and the typical life track that culture has pressed upon us, go to school, get good grades, go to college, get a good career, work until retirement, and then enjoy your life. That model is broken.
It's broken.
And it has created a lot of limiting beliefs in our culture, like the starving artist mindset. I hear from so many people that didn't pursue their creative passions as a career because they needed to make money. Because there's a belief that you can't make money from your passion or you can't make money from your art. This is something that I'm passionate about rewriting in our culture, but it's a collective limiting belief that we have.
I love that. I mean, I did that several times in my own personal career. And I don't really want to go into all of that, but I mean, there's so much pressure, especially in the US, especially right now with everything that's going on, where just from an economic standpoint, people are nervous. And with inflation, it is hard. It is especially hard for the older generation that, they were taught, go down this traditional track. You work at the same job for 40 years. And now with inflation, the money that they have on their fixed income, it's not enough to be able to go to the grocery store, to be able to go to a lot of places and keep up with what's happening today. And it's hard for a lot of people. So I understand how that limiting belief is become more and more prevalent. But we are at this time where systems are falling. We're in the age of Aquarius now, right? We're back on. And so this is the time. And I believe we talked about this the last time we were in this position from an astrological perspective. It was during the French Revolution. And we're going to stay in this position, I think, kind of for the duration of our lives. We're both in our 40s, right? It's going to be here for the next 40, 50. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, so it's like systems are breaking down. And you talked about something in another podcast of, souls that are here on Earth just simply to be raising the vibration of the planet. And I love that. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So there are some spiritual leaders and teachers who talk about this time and how, depending on your spiritual beliefs, that we have come to this era, this time on Earth for this collective ascension, for this collective awakening that is happening. And so people are becoming more aware of their gifts. They're becoming more aware of the corruption in the systems that have taught us how to be up until this point. And there are beings in the spiritual realm that know what's happening and have come here as star seeds to support us in this transition. And I love it. I believe it might be Doris Cannon. She's a real teacher on this. She's since passed, but has written lots of books on this. And her work is fascinating.
I know she's gone, but every time I see her videos, she really reminds me of my grandmother. I just want to hug her. She's someone that you just want to hug. She just has that energy.
So warm and compassionate and just so authentic. So even if the things that she's sharing sound completely wild, it's like, oh, but there's also something I noticed. Like, I'm very guided by my intuition with any teaching or information that I'm given. And there's something about what she shares which really resonates. And so that for me is an indicator that there's something for me to look at there. But what she says is that souls are lining up to be incarnated in Earth at this time, because this is such an exciting time. So it's a challenging time for many of us just because we're so empathetic. We're taking on a lot of the emotions of the collective. And if you choose to look at it as a growth catalyst, it can also be a really exciting time it's a paradigm shift. So, looking at the things that aren't working anymore and really visioning what it is that we want to create for ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when you just talked a little bit about the empathy piece, and I've talked about this on a previous episode with another guest, and we We talked about empathy, huge. I think I shared that I was getting over an illness. December historically is just not a good month for our family. Last year we had COVID for Christmas, and there's just so much sickness. And my heart goes out to all the families that are sick right now or dealing with sick children. And I know that might kind of sound silly, but just having even like a common cold, strep throat, COVID, like it really takes the whole family system down, and it's just a big jumble of a mess. And there's so much pressure around the holidays with all the events. So I just wanted to say, like, my heart goes out to everyone that is dealing with that, because it's a lot this time of year. My point is, when you aren't feeling well, you can tend to doom scroll on Instagram or consume maybe media that you wouldn't normally consume because you're kind of trapped in bed and resting. And I promise I have a point. My point is just, oh man, there were a couple pieces of news that hit me yesterday where I'm just like, I wish that I hadn't seen that, and I can't take it back. And it's like, how do I go on? I find myself like getting stuck in those horrific stories. And it's really hard to move past it. So what advice do you have for people that are feeling the weight of the holidays? Because it could be a huge trigger for a lot of people. The holidays can be really, really difficult, or they're just feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders. How do you help them kind of get past that? Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, the only way that we can change the collective is by changing ourselves individually. And so I think when we get too big picture, like watching a news story or something, that it can really spiral us because it feels so big. But when we're able to kind of distill down and focus on our immediate community or on one-on-one service, I think it can really shift a lot of what we're feeling. And so I think, being of service in any way, any time of year is a great way to really see the effect that one person can make. And it's those one-to-one connections that are really going to shift us globally. And so I think really going from that big picture to focusing down to something more tangible, closer to home, is a great way to remedy that, as well as sitting with your emotions. So it really goes back to that creative practice. So, looking at a news story, feeling really distressed about something that you've seen, take it to journaling. One practice that I prescribe to my clients is a thought download. And so you can take a circumstance, like a news story, and you can take a clean sheet of paper right at the top of the page, whatever the circumstance is, and then do a thought download or a brain dump where you just free write for about 3 to 5 minutes.
Okay.
So write any thought that comes into your brain. And then once you have done that and kind of gotten all your emotion out on the page, then you can turn it around and say, okay, this is what I'm feeling. This is what is now. What would I like to see instead? And use your imagination to visualize or imagine what would you like to see instead, and then do a brain dump on that. So spend 3 to 5 minutes.
So much. It's like a big pivot.
Yeah. And then I invite my clients to use that as what you want to see instead, or the first one, either way, as a creative project. So set the intention to write a painting, write a song, write a story, make a meal, plant something in your garden, with that intention. But really as a way of transforming it, allowing it to be a growth catalyst to create what you'd rather see in.
And if we were all doing that in a creative way instead of stewing, because I'm a stewer, so I tend to sit and stew and then rethink about how could this horrible thing. I'm very much I'm very much a why person. I understand the how of things and the mechanics, but I'm like, why? Why would someone, do X, Y, and Z? Why? And so like, I'm not giving myself, and I'm sure that other people feel this way too, that release, that somatic, release of, okay, well, yeah, this was horrible. What do we want to see in the world? So if we're all writing down beautiful things, that has to have an effect, right? Just like in a conscious way. Like if we're planting flowers, making good meals, doing nice things, and that's out there, that's gotta help. I have to think that that's gotta help.
Absolutely. When we change the way we look at things, the things we look at change. We hires. And there is, a spectrum of traumas and life circumstances that this is a very general viewpoint on it. And I know from my experience when my husband passed away that I was able to shift from this shouldn't have happened. Why did this happen? How could this have been prevented? Shifting it to, okay, I accept it. This is what happened. How can I move forward from this in a way that honors his life and allows his death to not be in vain? And I decided that day he died that I was going to make my life as positive as possible for that purpose. For
That's
there to
so
be
beautiful. And you were, I don't even want to tell you what I was doing when I was 20 years old. It was not, well, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't be so hard on myself. I am curious though, like you married really, pretty young in
young. I
today's,
would say,
well, I mean, my mom had a child when she was 19. My parents were high school sweethearts. So it just depends on the, era. And certainly there's girls that are getting younger, married a lot younger than that. But for US standards, like that's definitely on the younger side. How many years did it take you to get to that point? Like, was that, and not that I'm trying to lump it into it. I'm just so curious because you do seem like you had this incredible experience at such a young age and the level of maturity and spiritual development at such a young age.
it was forced upon me. I'll say that. He and I, we met when I was 16 and he was struggling with mental illness and it was a very toxic and codependent relationship. So I didn't show up in that relationship with much maturity at all. It was a total mess. So by the time he passed away, it was like my world stopped. I really felt like I was in this tornado of chaos and everything just stopped that day that he died. And I remember just sitting there thinking, I'm just so tired of being sad. I'm tired of being in pain. And I really saw two bad paths before me. I saw one where I had a really great excuse to throw my life away and stew in the grief. And I saw another path where I could, like I said, make meaning from the loss and that I had a second opportunity at life to make my life as amazing as I could. And at that point, it wasn't like I was miraculously healed in that moment, but I set the intention and a goal to heal from this and not let it define me. And so that became then my work. That's when I started songwriting. I started seeking self-help books. I found a spiritual community. It snowballed into becoming a wonderful gift that he gave me to allow me to step into a greater version.
That's amazing. That's really incredible.
And I share it because we each have that opportunity. We
right.
all have
anytime. It could be a day one. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a practice, right? It's a real practice because there's definitely moments, especially parenting or, interacting with family where I don't feel like I'm taking that high road. And just being able to have these conversations and this awareness of like, oh, it is a choice. It is an option that's available to me if I'm aware of it.
Curious if you are seeing, and I know that you work with a lot of artists, if you're able to like extrapolate out and look at this past year, 2024, are you seeing common themes that people are struggling with? Maybe
Absolutely.
yes, maybe no. Maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah. I mean, one of the themes I see with almost every one of my clients is a belief of unworthiness and nothingness.
Where does that ultimately stem from?
It's childhood, typically from a very young
Astra,
age.
how do we not screw up our kids? Because we both have kids about the same age. Like, feel like, how can we not screw up these beautiful little souls? Or is that just part of the work? Is childhood trauma and trauma can range from horrific to, maybe not. It's the spectrum for sure. Can we? Is there?
I think we do the best that we can. And the way our brains are structured, I work a lot with the subconscious mind. Our subconscious belief systems are formed from 0 to 7. That means that our children, and this is true for all humans, are making meaning of everything that's happening to them from the ages 0 to 7 and taking it as truth and creating belief systems from it. So there are beliefs that are formed from literally getting neglected and having a very severe abusive family of I'm not enough, I'm unlovable, I'm not worthy of love. And then there's others who we adopt those beliefs just purely because we had a parent that was busy parenting other kids. And they're just like to no fault of their own. They were doing the best that they could, but our little brains make meaning of that. And then we carry that with us. So I don't know that it's avoidable. However, when we know better, we do better. So knowing this is how we are formed at a young age, and knowing that we carry our beliefs with us and they filter how we view what's possible for us, what is available to us, and the opportunities that are here for us. Knowing that and being willing to, as I say, live on purpose, make progress, not perfection, but making that progress to gain that awareness, to change those belief systems and strive to become a greater version of ourselves. I think that's the opportunity. It's not erasing those things from happening. I mean, really going back to my story, it's like I'm not trying to go back and change what life presented to us with my husband dying, but I am responsible for how I respond.
It's really beautiful. And so we talked before, going back to the not worthiness. That's the theme that you are seeing this year. How do you help people get over that? What are the modalities? I know you do some NLP. What are some other modalities that you're using? And for the folks that are watching, listening, what are some maybe small steps that they could take? Because certainly everyone feels that way. I feel that way. If I don't have a banger year, I feel unworthy, that I could have done this, I could have done that. And so I know that is affecting so many people.
Yes. And I think as people start to step into their gifts more and start to step into the possibility of sharing their passions, living their purpose, it's natural that that belief comes up because it's like, it's challenging this social structure that we've talked about, right? And then it's like, who am I to share my song? Who am I to share what I've written, right? So one of the things, yes, I do use subconscious processes with NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, and I have a big toolkit of that. One of the things that I love to offer is musical mantras. So I bring my music into the coaching work that I do because it's a really fun and easy way and very effective way to change our belief systems, to change the neural pathways in our brain, to empower us for what we need to believe to achieve our goals and our dreams. And so
Sorry, go ahead.
One service that I offer is writing custom channeled musical mantras. So I have a process I've developed where I support my client identifying what their challenge is. I coach them on that. We uncover what the limiting beliefs are around that challenge and then establish what they need to believe to empower themselves to move forward to achieve their goals. Then I go away and I write them their own custom song. I call it a living affirmation or a musical mantra that uses their words and a combination of that, my own creative process to channel a song for them that they can sing on repeat. And when you sing music on repeat, like an earworm, when you get a song stuck in your head, it actually changes the neural pathways in your brain so that you can change those belief systems and empower yourself.
Wow. So you have a couple different things. And didn't mean to interrupt you, but where I was going, there's another podcast that I really love, which is the Next Level Soul podcast. And he had a woman on, and she does a lot with frequency and sound. And she has developed this program called this device, which is called the harmonic egg. And you go into it and you're listening to these different frequencies, very similar to sound bath, sound therapy. One of the interesting things that she said about the sound bath is that when you're doing it in a big environment, if the practitioner is if they're not advanced, you can sometimes absorb other people's energy if they don't clear the room properly. And I was like, oh, that's really interesting. So she does a lot of one-on-one and getting to the frequency that the client maybe needs or is going to resonate with them. And so can you talk a little bit about that? Like, is it the frequency of the music? Is it the words? And then the other thing that I'm hearing is we know that if you're saying something enough times, it can have that impact where it's getting to the subconscious. But it sounds like singing it has a different different component to it. So can you talk about the frequency and then the actual singing?
Yes. So the frequency absolutely has so much to do with music because we are frequency. We are made of frequency. That's what we are,
Right.
sound. That is what we're made of. And so I have played a little bit with things like binaural beats, which can intentionally kind of put as a lower, like a very quiet layer to a track or a song. You can't necessarily distinguish it with your ear. However, when you listen with headphones, you can set it to a certain tone where it's playing one tone in one ear, playing another tone in the other ear, and the two make a channel literally from one ear to the other.
Yeah.
And will create a particular frequency in your brain that elicits a certain brain state. So it could have a gamma brainwave state, theta, alpha, depending on the intention of the song. So I've done that for some musical mantras where they've wanted maybe a meditative or like relaxing or calming intention for the song. And then I can put that binaural beat on there. Or maybe they want something more enlightened, creating more spiritual awareness, and I can put that binaural beat on there. So I think frequency does play a big part in it. I have a new song I just put out called Evolution, which has been recorded in 442 hertz, which is a frequency that all music used to be tuned to. And I believe in the 40s, all music as a standard got tuned to 440. I'm not sure why, but what we know is that 442 actually creates more harmonics in the body. So it resonates differently.
So the oldies are so good.
Maybe, yeah.
I mean, I love, like, it's so funny because like our kids aren't going to know what the oldies are, but you know, I listen to the oldies with my dad every morning when he drove me to school, and for Crest Market in Sebastopol, they're still playing the oldies, and I love the music from like the 50s, 60s. It's got something. Is that what it is? Is that what's on there?
But that's a good question. Okay. That'd be interesting to know to do like a comparison of music prior to them changing that standard hertz to now.
Yeah.
But that's one way that the frequency plays in. The difference between singing an affirmation and speaking it, there's a few things. One, if an affirmation is going to work for you, there has to be a part of you that believes it. So this is where when I work with someone one-on-one, the coaching piece is really important because as I say, like we identify the limiting belief and then we put holes in it. We get rid of its validity, at least to take some of the foundation away. So then when we introduce the new mantras, it's much more empowering. It's not something that your brain is going to be like, yeah, but. So that's one piece of it. And the other piece is that by singing it or adding music, because I recommend to my clients to listen to my recording of it until they can learn it themselves. But you can listen to something and still have the effect. I think it's great to embody it yourself and sing it yourself, even if you have no musical talent or, aptitude for music. There is emotion paired with the words in an affirmative song. Emotion paired with words or thought is much more potent for the field of energy around us. So it resonates with us on a deeper level when there's that melody that creates that emotion. It hits. And then the other thing, now I will say I write these mantras for individuals. However, I share them publicly. And they resonate with all of us. So that's the beautiful thing is like, we really all have the same creepy guts. And so when I write a song for one client about being worthy and being enough, we can all listen to it and sing it for ourselves and have it resonate. However, there's an extra layer when I'm writing these mantras for my clients, hearing their words sung back to them.
Yes.
Their language, there's something very potent about that. And like I said, they do become universal, but that's a really special experience that I get to share with my clients one-on-one if they decide to opt in for the service line.
One more question regarding the frequency. Does it need, and maybe this is just not something you know or you don't do, and it's just more of a curiosity on my end. Should it be tailored? Like does Astra need a specific frequency, or is it somewhat more universal? Like this is going to hit this and this and this and this and this, or are you?
There are specific frequencies associated with the chakras, associated with colors, associated with emotions, right? There's a unique frequency with everything we come in contact with. Because right. So if you're wanting to create more joy in your life, there is a tone for that is going to resonate or align with it. Now, forgive me for not knowing the name of the device, but I did make a connection with a woman who had a device that, this was so cool. I was able to do it over voice memo. Yes. And she said, just send me like a 30-second to 60-second voice memo and just tell me about what you're wanting to create in your life. So I just kind of spoke about it. She put my voice memo into this machine that she has, and it gave a prescription of what sound frequencies I needed to heal any discrepancies, anything that was out of alignment. And then it also created soundscape meditations that I could listen to provide that.
Yeah, I think that was a little bit more of where I was thinking, and I'm not articulating it the way maybe I want to. That's kind of what this other woman had said, is that, and it's so funny because as soon as I tuned into this, I don't know if you have this sound is actually really important to me, and it can really affect me. If there's too many sounds going on, my nervous system gets overwhelmed. If I don't like the sound of something, it's like I think it's my number one sensory is sound. And so as soon as her voice came onto this podcast, I had this like, ooh, I really like her voice. And I didn't even know what the podcast was about. And it was all about sound. She actually had her voice tuned. So she's like, my voice didn't used to sound like this. My voice has been tuned. And I thought that was like the coolest thing. I'm like, of course your voice has been tuned because it sounds magnificent. And I'll link it in here because I think it's germane to our conversation. And I think you would, because of the work, you're basically doing very, very similar work. I think you would be really interested in that. The other thing that she had said is now escaping me for some reason, but it was really, really interesting that she had her actual voice tuned, essentially.
That's fascinating. I'm very eager to follow up with her work. When I first recorded the first demo of my song Evolution that I mentioned, that's tuned into 442, I shared it with my friend that taught me about the binaural beats and how to add those to my tracks. And I was like, well, let's do it in 442. He was like, okay. And so he went to check to see how I'd already recorded it. And he said, you're already singing in 442.
I just got chills. That's amazing. Now, what if you hear a sound, because I have gone to sound baths where you're like, and it just does not resonate with you. How do you deal with that?
I'm curious what your thoughts would be about why you think that.
I love that you're spinning it back on me. I don't know. I think that there could be, I don't know. It could be like that is triggering something in you and you have to really sit with it. But then while I'm saying that, it also feels like you're maybe forcing something. But then I don't know, what are you supposed to do? Get up and run away and leave the sound bath? I'm a little torn. I don't know. There's other things that I listen to. Like I listen to a lot of the beats, but the binaural, can you say it for me again? Binaural beats. And sometimes I turn it on and it's like my ears it's juicy. That sounds so weird, but it's like, if you imagine you bite into something delicious, that's how it feels for my ears. It's weird, where you're like, ooh, it has this sensation. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer for you. Either you need it or you don't need it. And I don't know which answer is right.
I think anytime we have strong reactions to something that feels uncomfortable, it's an opportunity to look at it. Right. So I don't have the exact answer. I'd be curious to ask, and I will follow up and check in with one of my sound healing friends to see if she has a nice response for that. However, I know that anytime we're triggered by something, it's an indication that there's something that we can heal or learn from. And once we find the learning, usually it kind of smooths it out and we don't feel triggered.
Okay, give me another. So I really do not like dogs barking. It's a major trigger for me. Like my flight and fight, it's activated. I'm like ready to go. If there is like a dog barking, am I just supposed to like calm myself and breathe into that and be this like, calm in the storm type thing? How do you deal with sounds in kind of the everyday environment that trigger you? The noise pollution.
There will be a deeper dive into this, right? So I would ask, when is the first time you can remember being triggered by a dog?
Yeah.
Because
so we'd have to go all the way back.
You're having a subconscious response. It's not a conscious thing you're deciding to do. It's something that's happening subconsciously. And like I said, imprinted from 0 to 7 or before. It can be passed down genealogically or from a past life. And so then we would go through some questioning and some processes to identify, okay, when is the first time I can remember this happening? What emotions were present? What beliefs or thoughts were going through my head? And then from there, we can distill down, okay, is this a negative emotion that is implanted in my subconscious as I call it emotional baggage, right? Emotional baggage can be limiting beliefs. It can be unhealthy patterns or strategies that our brain has created to protect us somehow that's no longer serving us, as well as negative emotions. So that
maybe it is serving you because dogs are dangerous.
Yes. And when we release emotional baggage, it's not getting rid of healthy fears or healthy sadness or grief. It's getting rid of an inappropriate response to the circumstance. So getting cut off in traffic and like wanting to run someone off the road. Or I used to have a choking response. My son would I'd give my son a piggyback ride and I would have to throw him off of me and I would get livid and angry.
Yes.
So I was able to heal that through some subconscious processes that I've learned through my NLP work.
Also, I know that feeling and I hate that feeling.
So it's technically a phobia. And so, but when we have those irrational responses to something like giving my son a piggyback ride and feeling pressure on my esophagus, like that's not an appropriate response. So that's an indication that you can release that trigger.
Let's talk a little bit about something that you had previously mentioned that you have done, and I think it's really interesting. It's blind spot awareness, and that's sessions work that you do with the clients. Let's talk about that.
Yes. So one of the intro level sessions or offerings that I offer to people to get to know me, the work that I do, to see if we're a good fit to work together, is called a blind spot awareness session. And this is an opportunity for my clients or potential clients to get really clear on where they are, where they'd like to be instead. And then we can look at what is in the way. What are those blind spots that are keeping them stuck and keeping them from moving forward? So actually, you're a perfect example, Emily. We were to hop on a blind spot awareness session. We'd look at, okay, what is the blind spot around the dog's barking? Like, what is it that you're not aware of in this moment that is leading to that result for you? And so maybe you want a dog and you haven't wanted to purchase one because you have this fear of your dog, one of the examples, but that is something that we could look at and bring awareness to. And having that awareness is the first step to changing anything, right?
What are some other common ones? What are some other common ones that you're seeing?
Oh, gosh, anything from stopping any unhealthy habits, overindulging in food, alcohol, having uncontrollable emotions. So I've had clients with anger issues. I've worked with just artists who have a creative project that they can visualize for themselves, but don't know what's stopping them from taking the action. So procrastination is a big thing. Imposter syndrome is a big thing. Lack of confidence. Those are some of the most common ones, but it's usually people that feel stuck where they're at now. They have a sense or a vision of something that they'd like to create instead, but they don't know what's stopping them or holding them.
With that, which is getting to the root answers that are really inside of yourself. Tell me Tell me a little bit more about how you help people kind of listen to that internal, because the answers are all inside of you. So how do you help them get to those answers?
Yeah, it's one of the things that made me fall in love with coaching. I think this is a preconceived notion around life coaching. It's a fairly new profession and it's growing at a rapid rate. So people are kind of aware of the term, but they don't necessarily know what the definition of coaching is. But by definition, coaching is based in the philosophy that each of us has our own wisdom within ourselves. So there's this preconceived notion that coaches give you advice, give you suggestions, will tell you what to do, give you a roadmap for your life. It couldn't be further from the truth. I never give my clients suggestions or advice because I'm not the expert on their life. My client is the expert on their life. So in coach training, I learned how to ask powerful questions, listen in a way that's very effective, help people develop a strategic plan, and many other tools, as well as the subconscious things that I've mentioned in my NLP work. But it's all designed to give you new perspectives so that you can begin to see answers and possibilities when you didn't see them before. So I'm not giving my clients anything that they didn't necessarily already have. I'm just creating the space for them to have those new awarenesses and insights come in. Solutions arise where before they didn't seem possible. It's a really beautiful thing. And I think it really just ties into this idea of each of us bringing our unique gifts into the world and empowering those to allow them to flourish.
It's hard when you are running the race to see the race. You know what I mean? To be able to take a step back and have that drop down view of your life and all of the pieces. And sometimes being able to take a time out and work with someone like yourself to do that can be just so tremendously helpful. Tell me a little bit more about some of the common things that kind of come up for your clients, especially this time of year. What are you seeing are kind of the biggest challenges that people are just facing? I know we talked a little bit about creatives, but is there anything else?
Yeah, I think with anyone, there's lots of time management, right? Procrastination comes in a lot. We have so much coming at us, so many responsibilities, so many expectations, so many distractions. That's one.
Okay, you're like talking my language now.
And it's simple. It may sound simple, but it's one of the things I hear from my clients most. Other than seeing like new possibilities and having a new mindset from our work together, it's the accountability. It's having that dedicated time to focus on yourself, your mental health, your mindset, and your dreams. Like how often are we spending an hour a week really dedicated with someone who's there like as our cheerleader on our team, supporting us, completely dedicated to our brains and supporting our brains in turning towards the things that are possible for us.
Do you think life coaching sorry, go ahead.
That accountability is huge.
Yeah. Do you think that life coaching and the most successful people now, I mean, there are people that are my peers. One of my peers, we just talked about this in a group in a mastermind that I'm involved in. And I think he has 7 coaches. And then someone actually saw another speaker was on it. I think we were talking about like the power of coaching. He was saying that he has 7 coaches for 7 different things. So there is no shame. Maybe there used to, I don't know, who knows. But the smartest people, the most successful people have coaches at whatever stage of the game that they are in. So I think it is becoming more and more common. And in a way, like, yeah, of course I have a coach because I want to be better, because I want to you don't stop having a coach just because maybe you're not playing sports. Do you think that coaching is replacing like a more traditional talk therapy? Do you see that at all?
Yes. I have seen that quite a bit I'm also a spiritual life coach instructor through Life Purpose Institute, my first coaching school. And so I'm seeing new coaches coming in, and then I take continuous education trainings. And I see new coaches coming in who are either people that were going to explore the field of psychology or people who have already been working as therapists and they are transitioning to coaching. I think this is for a few different reasons. I heard one licensed therapist tell me for NLP particularly, because it's more effective. Literally, he said that.
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about traditional talk therapy and what we know about what we focus on, we get more of.
Yes.
Speaking our traumas, speaking our challenges over and over again is not supportive. It actually makes it more rooted. So Let me explain it this way. So define therapy as you have a problem today and you do like an archaeological dig to see, what got you there from the past. In coaching, you have a problem today and it's like being an architect, building solutions to create the future that you want. And so I also know, I do want to mention this, that I have another friend that's moving from therapy to coaching purely because of the requirements for therapy. It's highly regulated and coaching is not yet. It's a double-edged sword with coaching. That's one reason I'm really passionate about the International Coaching Federation, which I'm accredited through.
Yes, you're accredited across the board, which I love that, because anyone could, I could say that I'm a coach and there's no one. Yeah.
Correct. And that's not to say that there aren't powerful coaches that get great results for their clients that don't have an accreditation. However, I have seen damage done by people who call themselves coaches, not only to the clients, but also to the industry itself. Just again, leading to that misconception of what coaching actually is. And so I'm really passionate about having a code of ethics and having some basic competencies that create the foundation for the work that I'm doing with my clients. And it's proved to be effective is also the bottom line. It's safe for the client and it's also proved to be the most effective strategy.
And then my follow-up question is, are you seeing clients that are coming from traditional talk therapy because maybe they weren't getting the results because I know with talk therapy, there's no end. That's just you just do this forever. And that doesn't really seem sustainable.
Absolutely. Yes. I have had several clients who come to me because they've got an alternative to therapy, or they have tried therapy and they haven't found it to be effective. And then, yes, to what you're saying, I typically work with people for 12 weeks at a time. And so people really like that there is a set time period. And especially with the NLP work that I've been doing, those subconscious repatterning that I can support my clients with is countering talk therapy, absolutely, as far as it is.
I love it. So you have something kind of exciting coming up at the end of January.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So I am really excited. I'm going to be releasing my new album. It's my second solo album. It comes out January 16th, and I am hosting in Sebastopol, California, where we live, an album release concert. So I am just beyond thrilled to be sharing this album. I've been working on it the songs I've been working on for years and years, but the studio recordings I've been working on for the past year with Grammy Award-winning producer Isha Erskine.
I know Isha very well. Yep. He was at my house last week. Yep.
He's incredible. And
he was playing piano on our piano, and it brought me so much joy because I don't play anymore. And he's an amazing artist. And it was he's such a wonderful person and an amazing, amazing producer.
He's very talented at what he does. And my songs have honestly sounded better than they ever have. So I'm so thrilled to just share the quality of these songs and also the message behind them, because the album is called My Own Medicine. So back to what we're talking about, these songs were inspired from my own transformational journey, as well as some of my clients. Several of these songs started as smaller musical mantras that turned into full length songs. And so the message is really for us to tap into our own unique medicine, to tap into that wisdom, to empower our gifts and share them with the world.
So tell me about the concert. Where's that going to be?
So it's going to be Thursday, January 30th, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at Soft Medicine Sanctuary, which is in downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm really excited to make this a full experience. I'm going to be sharing an intimate concert with all the songs from the album with the band. I'm going to have a drummer and a keyboardist. I play guitar, so I'm excited to fill out my sound a bit with these other artists. But I'm also going to have my dear friend Chris Youngkinsberg do an opening sound healing to set the energy at the beginning. I'm also going to have another dear friend of mine, Sabrina, and she's a local visual artist, and she's going to be doing some live art to capture the essence of the evening. And
well, I'm totally there.
Yeah.
Please pray that I'm healthy and that I can come. I've been saying like to people to events right now, it's like, I'll come bearing that, we're all healthy, but yeah, I want to be there. Can we bring children? Is it children?
Kids under 12 free. And that's one thing that I am so proud of with music is that when I was writing sad love songs about my husband passing away, I didn't feel much joy sharing those songs, especially when there were kids around. And the songs that I sing now, I've heard from so many parents, and I go and I sing musical mantras, song circles in preschools. I just hear from so many like adults and children alike how much my music resonates with them and how it really changes people's mindsets for how they view themselves and what's possible for them. So that's true with my musical mantras that are really prescribed to change your brain, but also for these more full-length songs that are on this album.
I love it so much. And it's such a great community building event. What's the format? Are people bringing yoga mats and bolsters? Tell me a little bit more about the vibe.
So it'll be seated. And then how I envision it is, yes, having some pillows and bolsters in the front where the kids can sit, or if somebody wants to just sit close on the floor, and then seated in the back. I say most of my music is sit and listen music, but we'll see. There's gonna be creating some more full soundscapes with some of these songs. So there might be some opportunity for dancing, but mostly it's going to be an opportunity to really go within and allow the sounds, the frequencies, the lyrics, and the melodies to empower you to live your joyful purpose.
It sounds like such a beautiful event. So let's definitely link that. Like we should link the soft medicine. And we'll have all of your links. So if folks want to work with you, do you see people locally, or is everything on Zoom?
I do a combination.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. So we'll put your
in person, but primarily I work on Zoom or over the phone.
Is there anything else that you want to mention before we close out?
Yeah, but thank you so much, Emily, for this opportunity. I love this conversation, and I just want all of your listeners to know that you are worthy. You are enough to share your gifts, and that your medicine shared with the world is what is going to really elevate the world into our next level of evolution.
I love that. I love that. And I love your message. And I love kind of just circling back to what we talked about at the very beginning of how we're talking about how I personally can get really derailed by the media that is out there, of just focusing on your influence of control, your sphere of what you can control in your daily, the impact you can make, one-on-one, if it's with your pets, if it's with your kids, if it's with a neighbor, if it's a smile at the grocery store. If we can compound all of those positive things, like we just have to have faith that they will have an impact on the greater world.
Absolutely. Thank you, Emily.
Okay. Thank you, Astra. Have a beautiful day, and I'll see you in January.
Revolution, revolution, revolution. Put down your heavy load. Put it down. Allow your heart unbound.